We're just waiting for the meeting to go live. Right.
We are now live and being broadcasted and live streamed.
Right.
Please welcome the Mayor of the Borough of Bracknell Forest, Councillor Jenny Penfold.
Right. So, sorry. Remind you all the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube. I have waived the requirement to stand when you are talking. That is in the council procedural rules. I formally declare the meeting open. Right. Are there any apologies?
I've received apologies from Councillor Pennell, Councillor Mossam, Councillor Karim, Councillor Welch and Councillor Robertson.
And does anyone in the room know of any other apologies? Councillor Welch. Sorry, Councillor Wright.
Councillor Jeffrey sends his apologies as well.
Thank you. Right, Deputy Mayor, is there anyone joining us online?
I can't see any online.
I think we've got Councillor Eggleston online. If you could confirm you could hear us, Councillor Eggleston.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I can hear you.
Right. I remind you all, only the people in the room can vote. Right. We're now moving on. I have been advised of 2 errors in the minutes. Councillor Harrison, I think we have not corrected it correctly, I believe. Could you tell us the correct version as it should be?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will clarify this with committee service just to make sure we get this absolutely right. Although I'm no longer the executive member, I was responsible for a lot earlier in the stage, the start of the community hub. But my current interest is actually, I've been involved in the local ward member Warfield Community Hub steering meetings.
Right, thank you. That's noted. Under page 10 of the minutes, there was an error in the numbering of question 5, which I think should have been question 4. Right, do any other members have any other points of accuracy? Councillor Templeton.
Yes, Madam Mayor, on page 10 as well, under 4, on the question, on the 5th line, there's a constant repeating of aware, that cabinet aware, member aware. So that word aware needs to be taken out, please.
Thank you, noted. If nobody else has any points of correction, I propose the minutes I propose the minutes are accepted subject to the corrections and are adopted as a correct record. Councillor Templeton, could you second the minutes?
I'll second those, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands, please? Right. Pardon? Yeah. Thank you. That I confirm the minutes. Now we move on to declarations of interest. The full text is on page 3 of the agenda papers. Does any member here have any disclosable pecuniary interest or an affected interest to declare? Deputy Mayor, does anyone joining remotely have a disclosable pecuniary or affected interest?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Right. Good evening, everybody, and good wishes for a peaceful and prosperous 2025. Also, can I welcome Donna Pressland, who is attending her first full council meeting, though most of you have met her before at OS meetings and other meetings. I'm sure you've all received and read the document summing up the core protocols governing council meetings. It will not be new to you, but should remind us that our behaviour should always be in line with the Nolan principles and respect shown at all times, which it usually is. This includes talking between yourselves, which is distracting and can prevent people around you engaging fully. There's also a reminder that points of order should only be called if a procedural rule has been broken. And when called, you should state which rule has been broken. As you can see for the screen, it doesn't count at the moment. Do we have a list of my engagements? No, well, sorry, it hasn't come through. I've been quite busy this Christmas, but a lot of them have been pre-Christmas events, handing out sweets, handing prizes to children. I also went to the Crowthorne late night shopping, the pantomime, and in fact it was a very busy time. Deputy Mayor Councillor Cochrane also covered for me and quite a lot of events. So, sorry, you can't read what... we had got some pictures too. But we were both been very busy in December. Again, it reminded us of the wealth of community and charity activities enjoyed by people in Bracknell Forest. Most of these are organised by volunteers and are enjoyed by a wide range of people, ranging from young people, old, homeless, sports groups and everyone else. I must give a heartfelt thanks to these volunteers. What would we do without them? And remember, you're all volunteers too. So thank you for the work you do. I'm pleased to report that the quiz for the Mayor's Charity raised £880 for the Mayor's Charity Fund for the Ark. More events are planned in the spring, including a race night, which I have no idea what happens at race nights, but possibly this will be in March. And a golf lunch, which is aimed at small businesses. I will let you know when these are happening so that you can all join in. Right. I now invite Councillor Pemberton to present her Cabinet report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Cabinet report. The Cabinet, the Finance and Corporate, the next slide please. Okay, thank you. The recent meetings are there on the board, which I can't read because it's yellow. It's white on yellow again. Sorry, everybody. Can we have the next slide, please?
Lydia, it will come up. There appears to be a delay from my laptop,
Okay,
so
sorry.
it will come up. Apologies.
Well, I'm sure you can all read that beautifully. Unfortunately, I can't. Okay, Finance and Corporate Improvement, the Capital Programme 25-26. The Cabinet approved the draft Capital Programme for public consultation. It's based on total spending of 8.38 million. The Cabinet also recommended that the Council approves a supplementary capital approval of 2.2 million in relation to the grant received in 24-25 to support the development of the High Street car park. The draft capital programme will now be considered by overview and scrutiny. Their views, alongside any submitted by residents and local groups, were reported to the Cabinet and full Council in February, when the final budget proposals for 25-26 will be agreed. The revenue budget 25-26, the Cabinet approved the draft revenue budget proposals on the basis for consultation. This also approved that the council tax base be set at 50,488 Band D equivalents for 25-26, and the variance relating to the 24-25 budget. Cabinet recommended to Council that the variance related to the 24-25 budget are set out in Annexes F and G that are over 0.1 million are approved by the Council. The draft revenue budget will now be considered by overview scrutiny. Their views, alongside any submitted by residents and local groups, will be reported to the Cabinet and full Council in February, when the final budget proposals for 25-26 will be agreed. The public consultation is on, it's happening now, and it will run until 5 p.m. on the 22nd of January. I've been out 4 times now, and it's interesting. If you've not yet had your say, please do so before the deadline. We also have public drop-in sessions running over the next couple of weeks. Anyone who wants to talk about the proposals, give their views or ask questions, please do come along and attend, and details are available on our website. Council strategy and climate change. The draft climate change strategy is aligned to the Council's ambitions to reach net zero, or as close as possible, by 2030. The strategy is accompanied by a delivery plan for 25-26. The Cabinet agreed to consult on this draft climate change strategy, and that is now going out. They noted the spending commitments within the Phase 1 delivery plan were included in the draft budget proposals. And I will say there's been an extension to this climate change strategy consultation period. It now does not end until January the 26th. Planning, Transport and Countryside, Thames Basin Heaths Special Protection Area Supplementary Planning Document. The Council adopted its first Special Protection Area strategy in 2007. It was revised in 2012 and 2018. The current Special Protection Area Supplementary Planning Document needs updating. A revised document will help the implementation of planning policies. It will also help applicants understand the Council's requirements around mitigating the impact of development on the Special Protection Area. Therefore, Cabinet approved the content of the draft Thames Basin Heaths Special Protection Area Supplementary Planning Document. They agreed that a public consultation on the draft document should start on the 15th of January and run to the 12th of February. The assignment of council-owned land to the delivery of the biodiversity net gain. Oh, that's there, sorry. Okay, sorry, beg your pardon, everybody. Biodiversity net gain became mandatory for large developments in February 2024 and for smaller developments in April 2024. Cabinet approved the establishment of council-owned land to act as biodiversity net gain habitat banks. This will enable the council to sell biodiversity units to developers to meet mandatory requirements. By establishing Bracknell Forest as an off-site habitat bank provider, the council can offer local biodiversity units to developers. This approach helps preserve local biodiversity and green infrastructure as developments proceed. Children and young people and adults and public health revised all-age multi-agency safeguarding arrangements. New statutory guidance called Working Together to Safeguard Children was published in December 2023. This guidance requires the 3 local statutory safeguarding partners to revise their multi-agency arrangements to safeguard the children. Cabinet approved the revised multi-agency children and adult safeguarding arrangements. Leisure, culture, public protection, democracy, the core Azure hosting procurement. The Cabinet approved the procurement of a Microsoft Azure hosting service. This will ensure continued server hosting in our current Microsoft Azure cloud environment. Economic development and regeneration, the sale of land. Cabinet approved the sale of the land at South Road. The sale of the land to the proposed developer enables the planning application for 226 dwellings to be granted, subject to the completion of the requisite Section 106 agreement. The land at South Road is considered to have a negligible amenity value. Its sale at the provisionally agreed price represents a significant uplift to its existing use value. Thank you. Are there any questions? Right.
If there are no questions, are there
you.
any questions online, Deputy Mayor?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
Right. There are two recommendations. The first recommendation is on page 15 of your agenda, and it relates to the capital programme 2025 to 26. Do any councillors have any questions about this for Councillor O'Neill? Shear. Any questions about this? No? So, Deputy Mayor, are there any questions online?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
Right. Who is going to move this recommendation?
Councillor Neil, happy to move.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see you there. Well, I could see you, but sorry. Sorry, Councillor Neil, can you recommend move the recommendation?
Councillor Neil, happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor Temperton, can you second it?
Councillor Templeton, willing to second the recommendation.
Right, Councillor Neil, can you speak to the recommendation?
So the recommendation here is to allow the council to use the government funding that we've received to start work on the High Street car park. It's currently in a poor state of repair and needs to be demolished, and also to support the future development of that area. So yeah, it's to approve that. Thank you.
Councillor Temperton, do you want to speak or reserve?
No.
Does any councillor wish to speak on this motion? Right. Deputy Mayor, is there any councillor online who would like to speak to
No
it?
one online, Madam Mayor.
Set out on screen. She has done. Yeah. I forgot to ask. Yeah, right. So can I ask for a vote on this motion? All in favour, raise your hands, please. Right.
That's unanimous.
Right. That motion is carried. So where's the second one? Right. The second recommendation is on page 16 of the agenda, relating to the revenue budget 25-26. Do any councillors have any questions about this? No? So, does any councillor joining us remotely have a question?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
So Councillor Neil, could you move the recommendations on page 16?
Councillor Neil, happy to move the recommendations.
Seconder, please.
Councillor Temperton, happy to second.
Right, good. Councillor Neil, would you like to speak for the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify that this is essentially a tidying up exercise and it has no overall, there's no changes to the budget overall, but our constitution dictates that environments over a certain amount need to come to council for approval. So that's why we're here tonight. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Temperton, do you wish to speak or reserve?
Reserve.
Right. Is there any councillor wishes to speak on this motion? Is there any councillor online, Deputy Mayor?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you. Councillor Temperton, do you wish to speak now?
No, thank you.
Neil, would you like to sum up?
Nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
Right. The recommendation is set out on screen. Would you, and we can now take a vote on it. Clearly raise your hand if you're in favour. Right.
That's unanimous, Mayor.
Thank you. So that motion is carried. Right. Where have I got to? Sorry. Right. Of the draft statement of licensing policy principles under S 349 of the Gambling Act 2005. Do any councillors have any questions first? Right. If no councillors have any questions, can I ask Councillor O'Regan, who is the Vice Chair of the Licensing and Safety Committee, to move the recommendations on page 21 of the agenda? They are on the screen.
Yes, I'm happy to do that,
Right.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Frew, are you willing to second this?
Yes, I will, yes.
Thank you. Right. Councillor O'Regan, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. First, just wish everybody a Happy New Year. I'm sorry it's a bit late, but welcome to 2025. So we have in this item just recommendations to adopt a revised statement of our gambling policy. We have to do this every 3 years and bring it up to speed with the latest legislation. It's gone out to consultation. The consultation was considered, and recommendation is that we adopt the revised statement. There's just a couple of minor amendments. So I am speaking in support of the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Frew, do you want to speak or reserve?
No, reserve.
Thank you. Is any councillor would like to speak on this motion? Right, you're very quiet tonight. Okay. So, Councillor, Deputy Mayor, is anyone online want to speak?
Nobody online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Frew, do you want to speak as you reserved?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. So, Councillor Reagan, would you sum up, please?
As I said earlier, this is just a couple of minor amendments. The purpose of our statement on gambling is to ensure that the process for obtaining a licence is fair and free of discrimination, and there are no barriers to anyone making an application. So I commend this as a new statement to our members.
Thank you. The recommendation is now set out on screen. Sorry, it's Councillor Frew. Did you want to say anything? You didn't, did you?
No, nothing to add.
Sorry, I've done that bit. The recommendation is set out on screen. Please can we have a vote on it, please? So hands up if you are in favour.
I believe that's unanimous, Chair.
Right, that is carried. The recommendation is carried. Item 7 is minor updates to the statement of licensing policy arising from the revised S182 guidance. Do any councillors have any questions about this? No? Deputy Mayor, does anybody online have any questions about this?
Nobody online, Madam Mayor.
Right. Councillor O'Regan, would you move the recommendation?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd be very pleased to move the recommendation.
Right. Councillor Frewer, will you second the recommendation?
Happily second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor O'Regan, could you speak for the recommendation?
Yeah, it's very similar to the last item. This is just a regular update to our licensing policy. We do this every 5 years to make sure it's in line with legislation and local conditions. And again, I recommend this to members.
Right, thank you. Councillor Frewer, do you wish to speak or reserve?
Reserve, please.
Thank you. Does any councillor in the room wish to speak? Does any councillor who's joined us remotely wish to speak, Deputy Mayor?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Right. So, Councillor Frewer, do you wish to speak now?
No, nothing to add.
Right. Councillor Reagan, would you sum up, please?
Yes, as with the previous statement, revision to statements, we're here to make sure that the process of obtaining a licence is free and fair of discrimination, and there are no barriers to anyone making application, and that the rules around making applications are clear and consistent with the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We can now, the recommendation is set out on the screen. Could you put your hand, raise your hands if you agree with it?
I believe that's unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Right. Thank you. The recommendation is carried. Oops. Right, we now come to the questions that are submitted under Council Procedure Rule 10. 4 questions have been received from councillors, which are set out at item 8 at the beginning of the agenda. Each question will be displayed on the screen in turn. The response from the relevant Cabinet member to each question has been published as a supplementary to the agenda. Both questions and answers will be taken as read. Councillors can ask one supplementary question which should arise directly from the published answer and be succinct. The first question is from Councillor Gore to Councillor Gilby, Cabinet Member for Planning and Transport. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Gore?
I do, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Gilby for his very comprehensive response, and my supplementary question is regarding the work overruns, which is detailed in the response. I understand the current legislation allows a £750 day charge, and given the scale of roadworks in the borough, how successful has the council / highways team been in securing financial penalties as a disincentive for poor planning and execution by contractors? And is he able to quantify this, please? If not today, by mail at a later date.
Right, thank you. Councillor Gilby, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Councillor Gore. It's an important supplementary question because, quite apart from the frustration that overruns cause for the council, we know, of course, it causes frustration for our residents, and I'm sure you're not shy on emails from residents, just as I'm not, adverse to emails from residents on this matter either. You're quite right to imagine that I do not have the exact numbers in front of me. However, I will go away and consult with the traffic manager and come back to you with a formal answer. Thank you.
Right, thank you. The second question is from Councillor Gore to Councillor Templeton, Cabinet Member for Council Strategy and Climate Change and Leader of the Council. Councillor Gore, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Templeton, for your very comprehensive response to the question posed. My supplementary question is quite straightforward. Regrettably, some of the residents who were unwell and have long-term illnesses were unsuccessful in gaining funding for keeping their homes warm. So the question is, in the next tranche of funding, will they be reconsidered, or is that the end of the line for them?
I'll find out for absolute sure, but when I asked preliminary, thinking this might come up, and the thing on what I asked over the phone, it looks as if if they reapply, they could do it again, but it won't be necessarily carried on from a previous application. But I will check that absolutely for you to make sure that if they do need it and they want it, and they can reapply and then go through the whole thing again, or whether they can actually carry on from their previous one. I'll check it again, because at first I thought they had to reapply, but I'll just check that no new legislation has come through to recommend that they could just be held over. I'll let you know.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton. The third question is from Councillor Smith to Councillor Gilby, Cabinet Member for Planning and Transport. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank Councillor Gilby for his very comprehensive response. I don't have a supplementary today. Thank you.
Thank you. The fourth question is from Councillor Tina Eberle to Councillor Gilby, Cabinet Member for Planning and Transport. Again, this is displayed on the screen. Councillor Eberle, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor.
Right.
Thank you, Councillor Gilby, for your reply. Many residents have suggested that traffic lights would be appropriate on this junction. To what extent have complications due to the location of the junction spanning the border between the two boroughs affected considerations of traffic lights, and will this be explored as part of the proposed cross-council meeting? And in addition, could you confirm if the proposed meeting will include consideration of any additional measures which may be easier and faster to implement, such as an auditory vibratory road surface and and additional signage to ensure the recommended 30 miles per hour maximum speed is adhered for this dangerous junction?
Gilby, do you wish to respond?
I thank Councillor Eberle, not just for a supplementary question, but for raising this issue. We know it's close to many people's hearts. This junction has been an issue for many years. And I, again, re-emphasise, as I did in my answer, that this council is committed to finding a long-term solution to this issue. In answer to your first part, the issue of traffic lights, although inevitably a junction that straddles a border between two councils requires that bit more extra work, the reality is that the biggest stumbling block here is the fact that the area that would be needed to install traffic lights is not in the ownership of either council, it is in private ownership. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities for a way forward, but that is really where the stumbling block is in this conversation. To your second point, and linked also to the first point, I'm very happy, and I know that the team at the council are very happy to accept any proposal that comes forward, not just from councillors, but residents too. I'm entirely cognizant of the fact that many ideas have been suggested as part of this discussion, and we are very happy to take any proposal on board to ensure that it is examined accordingly and to come back with a formal answer. So, in short, yes, happy to accept any proposal at this meeting that we will arrange and happy to treat it with due study. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Gilby. Before I go on, I apologise for my sound turning itself on again because I turned it off, and I will be paying the £20 into the Mayor's Charity Fund. Right, to carry on. Item 8, motions submitted under Council Procedure Rule 11. 2 motions have been submitted under Council Procedure Rule 11 of the Constitution, which is set out at item 9 at the beginning of the agenda. The motion will be moved and seconded, and then we move to debate. Remind you all that you can only speak for once and for 5 minutes, maximum. Councillors in the room will be invited to speak first. The mover of the motion will have the right to reply before the vote is taken. If an amendment is moved and seconded, the debate will begin on the amendment. Anyone who has already spoken on the substantive motion can speak again on the amendment. The mover of the substantive motion will have the right of reply at the end of the debate on the amendment before the vote is taken. Now, looking at the first motion, I have been advised Councillor Forster had accepted an alteration to his motion, which is set out on the screen. Does anybody object to this alteration? No. In that case, we will take the motion as it stands, as it now stands, the amended motion. Right, Councillor Forster, would you propose your altered motion, please?
I'd like to propose this motion, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Zarudin?
Seconded, Madam.
We second it. Good. Right, Councillor Michael Forster, could you speak to your motion, to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not intend to condemn another member today, and I do not intend to re-examine the details relating to the code of conduct that was recently took place. I do not seek to make political capital from the incident either. What I do hope is that all of us can reaffirm the centrality of decency and respect in how we engage with officers, other members, and of course residents. As one of the councillors for Sandhurst and a former army officer, I share with you the motto of the Royal Military Academy, which is serve to lead. Upon entering the academy in 1995, I was issued with this book, and on it, embossed, are the words serve to lead. I think it's a model we should all take forward in our life. It served me well. Servant leadership focuses on serving others rather than seeking personal power or recognition, and it prioritised the need of those we serve over our own needs. It seeks to create a collaborative and inclusive environment. I hope we can all serve to lead. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Zarudin, would you like to speak or reserve?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to speak. Thank you.
Right, carry on.
I'm seconding this motion today with a deep sense of responsibility. This motion calls for reflection, for reinforcement of values, and for the continued well-being of this council and the communities we serve. There has been conduct that falls short of the high standards we expect from those in public office. While acknowledging the complexities involved, it is important that we reflect on the impact such behavior can have, not just on those directly involved, but on the trust and the respect that forms the foundation of this council's work. We should treat everyone with respect, not only in the chamber, but throughout all our interactions. It is vital that we uphold the trust placed in us, not just through our actions, but also through our words and attitudes, ensuring we never bring ourselves or the council into disrepute. Furthermore, this motion reiterates our commitment to the Mayor's Charter and the Member and Officer Protocol. Our relationship with officers must always be based on mutual respect, professionalism, and courtesy. In doing so, we promote an environment where we can work together effectively for the benefit of the communities we serve. These principles are not just aspirational, they are foundation for a positive and productive working environment. One of the core values we champion in this council is inclusive. Yeah, we wear this in our badges. Yeah. Inclusivity cannot be achieved without mutual respect. Inclusivity means making space for all voices, ensuring that everyone is heard and that everyone is treated with fairness and dignity. It is only through respect for one another, through honest and supportive relationships, that we can achieve the inclusive community we strive for. This motion requests that the leader of this council makes representations to the government to strengthen the standards regime in local government. We need a stronger framework with a range of sanctions that reflect the seriousness of breaches and ensure that trust in local government is maintained. To conclude, this motion is not merely a response to a single event, nor an attempt to gain political advantage. Rather, it represents a renewed commitment to the principles of respect, integrity, and professionalism that should underpin all our actions as councillors. Let us be resolute in our commitment to these values and work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to echo what my fellow councillors have said, and that we are a council of many opinions and many walks of life, but the Nolan principles keep us all together and can help us remain in collaboration to serve our people, so it's important that we uphold them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've been hearing over the past few weeks or so about the horrifying things that have been going on in certain parts of the country with what have been euphemistically been called grooming gangs, rape gangs, and people who try to blow the whistle on this. And in some cases, the full force of the establishment has come down on those people. One person who tried to raise the issue was actually sent on a diversity training course to punish them for what they were trying to tell the police. And this issue got brushed under the carpet. We've got to be very careful with things like codes of conduct, that where we're asking for the government to actually strengthen them, that we have checks and balances, that we have rights of appeal, and that we have the ability for people to raise the issues of wrongdoing and challenge that, and challenge authority, because otherwise it can become a very, very chilling effect on freedom of speech.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. This is an important motion, I think, strengthened by the amendment, and thank you for accepting the amendment that was put forward by Councillor McLean and seconded by Councillor Allen on the Nolan principles. Having been a councillor here for a long time, which we'll probably discuss in the next debate, I suspect, I believe that fundamentally this is a fair and open council, and I would like to commend the work that our monitoring officer and others do in supporting and upholding the code of conduct, and in the work that's done to train and support us in our roles. One thing that has always struck me here is that based on that inclusivity and tolerance and understanding, I think we need to be very clear, and maybe there's an opportunity for us all to review this through some sort of training or reflective session, on what constitutes breaches in the code of conduct, on what constitutes healthy political debate and discussion. I think, as we get through to budget cycles and or towards elections and things like that, that distinction will need to be, I think, clear and well defined. I have a huge respect for anyone that puts themselves forward to be an elected councillor, or for anyone that works in public office as an officer in this council, and recognise that fundamentally I think we all try to do the very best that we can. What we need to make sure is that for the code of conduct to be effective, yes, it's important to write to government to seek to see we can strengthen the sanctions, based on the Nolan principles. But fundamentally, we need to make sure that we have the resource to investigate those things that need to be investigated in a timely manner, and that we sort of have a shared responsibility for understanding them. I'm pleased that this motion has come this evening, and I'm pleased as well that it has been held in the spirit of actually seeking to advance the cause for all members, but recognise that, self-reflection and support from colleagues is important in the journey. And I think we understand how difficult that can be on occasions, but fundamentally, I think, Councillor Forster, you said it at the start, we lead to serve, and through serving we lead our local community. And at times when there are divisions, and at times where there are attacks on freedom of speech from all sides, it's very important that we uphold those standards so our voices are heard with credibility and authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Templeton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was part of the working group in the last administration that produced the Mayor's Charter under the leadership of the then Mayor, Councillor Ash Merry. This was introduced to try and improve the standards of behaviour between both councillor and councillor and officer. It's still included in the papers of every council meeting, but not in its entirety. So I'm going to read it to you. The Mayor's Charter sets out the standards of behaviour expected from all councillors at all times. These include the 7 principles of public life, the Nolan principles: selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty and leadership. These are the basis for making sure we have high standards in public life. Our councillors will encourage and foster constructive democratic debate and tolerance of other points of view, promote and defend the dignity of others, treating all with courtesy and respect, not engage in bullying, harassment or victimisation, nor discrimination against another member or group, challenge unacceptable behaviour whenever it occurs. Any behaviour that falls short of this will be dealt with under our standards of code of conduct processes. If any breach appears to break criminal law, it will refer to the police. This motion tonight refers to this charter, to the protocol between officers and members, and our code of conduct. The public have the right to expect the highest standards from their councils and councillors, and I'm sure everyone will vote for this tonight and accept these standards. As for writing for the government, part of the government white paper received in December includes the following. The vast majority of locally elected members maintain high standards and are driven by duty and service. They want to deliver the positive power of public service by maintaining the highest standards. We, that's the government, will give the relevant authorities appropriate and proportionate means to deal with misconduct effectively and decisively when it does occur. This council yesterday received a consultation from the government on their proposals, including 8 suggestions. I suggest this motion be supported. Should this motion be supported, the letter from me is the response to the consultation document. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor O'Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to draw members' attention to the Standards Annual Report that I presented last council meeting. I said at the time that the report speaks for itself. Now, there are some statistics there, and they need careful interpretation, but I think this motion and the amendment are very timely, because the number of complaints has risen markedly in the last couple of years. We had no complaints in 21-22, 18 in 22-23, and 17 in 23-24. Now, I'm pleased to say that none of these complaints were upheld formally since 21-22. Most are resolved informally through some form of mediation or apology. But I'm drawing members' attention to the rising number of complaints. So I think it's very timely that we're all reminded of the high standards that we've signed up for, and that we all try and make sure that next year's report goes back to a very low number of complaints. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gilby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Forster for introducing this important motion to the Chamber. The public rightly expects high standards of its representatives, and when that falls short, trust in all of us is eroded. As the motion sets out, Bracknell Forest Council has a robust regime in place to deal with such incidents, but it is only as strong as the national regulations that support it. I welcome the motion's call to ask government to review the range and strength of sanctions available. Whilst I would be sceptical of a sanction that can remove a councillor from office, in a democracy with few exceptions, it should be the people that decide if a councillor is removed from office, and such a sanction may be, in theory, open to abuse. It is right that the whole issue should be examined again to ensure that we have the most appropriate sanctions available to us.
Thank you, Councillor Gilby. Is there anyone else on the floor wants to speak, wishes to speak? Right, Deputy Mayor, does anyone joining us remotely wish to speak?
Nobody online, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you. Right, Councillor Forster, would you like to sum up?
Firstly, I'd like to thank all those that have spoken on this, and in particular the council leader. I think it's a timely reminder to spell out exactly what the Mayor's Charter says. For all of us, we are in the public eye. Our behaviour is something that we must recognise needs to be of the highest order. And I hope all of us, off the back of this motion, uphold the detail that the council leader has just brought to our attention. Thank you.
Right, thank you. The motion is now on the screen. Would you raise your hands if you are in favour of this motion? Right, that is unanimous, so the motion is upheld. Right, for the next motion, there was a small typographical error in the motion which referred to the devolution white paper published in 2025, when it should have read 2024. The corrected motion is now shown on the screen. Councillor Temperton, would you like to propose the motion?
I propose the moment and apologise for jumping a year ahead.
Right, Councillor Gilby, would you like to second the motion?
Madam Mayor, I second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Temperton, would you speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 16th of December 2024, the government published its white paper on devolution. This will introduce regional authorities called strategic authorities across England, supervised by a mayor. The 6 unitary authorities, Bracknell Forest, Wokingham, Reading, West Berkshire, Windsor and Maidenhead, and Slough, have already been working together since May 23 to expand common interests and have established a prosperity board and a business board to help drive growth throughout Berkshire. This successful arrangement seems to have proven too small to become a strategic authority, and it seems we must therefore join in discussions with others. Besides this reorganisation, the existing county councils and district councils have also got to reorganise to form unitary authorities, as Berkshire did over 20 years ago. Small unitary authorities may have to combine to form larger ones, but this will be considered case by case, ensuring it is in the best interest of the authorities involved. Support of this motion will provide the framework to negotiate with neighbouring authorities to achieve the best possible long-term deal for our Bracknell Forest residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gilby, would you like to speak or reserve?
I'll speak, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Members, this motion would give the leader, acting on behalf of the council, the authority to explore possible options for devolution and local government reorganisation in Berkshire. Whatever one's view of the white paper may be, As a responsible council, it is right that the leader enter into conversations early so we may benefit from the widest range of options that secure the best interests of Bracknell Forest and its residents. To not approve this motion risks the council unable to adapt quickly to the evolving implications of the white paper. Bracknell Forest must be proactive, not reactive. Members, you are not being asked to commit to a specific proposal, only that you empower the leader to lobby for options that uphold Bracknell Forest as a great place to live and work, something I'm sure we can all get behind. I therefore second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The stated intent of this motion to work to ensure the best possible outcome for the residents of Bracknell Forest is laudable, and it's certainly a position the Liberal Democrat group fully support. However, what concerns me about this entire conversation is that it appears to assume as a starting point support for the government's devolution proposals broadly without question or challenge. The proposals laid out in the recent government white paper on devolution are sweeping and far-reaching. If delivered, these proposals would result in a wholesale national restructuring of local government on an unprecedented scale. Devolution of powers from Westminster is the right thing to do, and the Liberal Democrats have always been supportive of devolving decisions which affect people's lives to the lowest practicable level. We are glad that the government wants to devolve power out of Westminster. But we are deeply concerned that many of the paper's proposals would in fact have the opposite effect. Critically, proposals to replace existing local authorities with much larger councils, each covering at least 500,000 or more residents, are the antithesis of devolution. If rumours are to be believed, this could move powers which are currently exercised at the local level right here in Bracknell Forest to a remote strategic authority potentially covering areas as far afield as Wiltshire. The government has little mandate for the proposed changes, few details of which were outlined in their 2024 manifesto or discussed in public prior to the general election last July. Nothing even remotely suggesting the extent of reform detailed in the recent white paper was put to voters during the general election campaign. It is also unavoidable that any top-down reorganisation of local authorities will inherently benefit the electoral calculus for some parties whilst disadvantaging others. Whilst this should not be an obstruction to necessary reform, we should all be extremely wary of this manifesting as a power grab by the sitting government. Empowerment of local communities should not be mistaken for empowerment of the Labour Party. Finally, we must not lose sight of the fact that these proposals do little to address the real underlying problems faced here in Bracknell Forest and up and down the country. Local government funding is in crisis. Social care, the single biggest drain on the budgets of virtually every local authority in the country, is in crisis. Reorganising the furniture is little more than a distraction that will do nothing to solve these problems. The message from this council to central government should be clear: go back and bring us some real solutions to these very real and pressing issues. For all of these reasons, whilst we do support the leader's motion, we do not feel that it goes far enough. I would therefore like to move an amendment which has been provided to the Democratic Services officers in advance of the meeting and should hopefully be being displayed on the screens now. The proposed amendment is to add at the end of the motion a statement clarifying this council's opposition to any unfavourable top-down reorganisation that would create remote super councils far removed from the communities which they serve. And to be clear, I would consider any new council of the scale proposed by the government's white paper to fall under that definition of a super council. I hope members from all political groups will lend this amendment their support. Thank you.
Thank you. Will someone second that? Councillor Forster. So we need to debate this amendment first, unless the leader, the proposer, accepts the amendment. Right, thank you. So, right, Councillor Barnard.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank Councillor Smith for moving the amendment. I've been a councillor in Bracknell Forest since the transition year in 1997 to 1998 when we became a unitary authority. And what became very clear to me during that transitional year was that as part of Berkshire County Council, that we were a little backwater in Berkshire, that didn't see the scale of investment, that didn't see the focus or didn't see the attention on our services, which were so key. And I'm afraid to say, I think Councillor Mrs Temperton and Councillor Gilby, your motion this evening is complacent in the extreme. The suggestion around devolution that has come forward is unhelpful in setting out what really matters here, because I'd like to say that I believe, in the vast majority of cases over the last 25 plus years, Bracknell Forest has been an incredibly successful council. I remember it was a fairly cold and wet day on the 1st of April 1998 when Michael Fish, remember Michael Fish, no hurricane here, planted 2 oak trees on the Met Office roundabout. They have grown in strength and stature over that time, and in that time Bracknell Forest, as a unitary authority serving the people of Bracknell Forest, have delivered huge gains for the community. Bracknell Town Centre regeneration, a focus from the council, businesses and the community, delivering that. In service delivery, children's services, outstanding. All our schools moving to good and outstanding, joint work with our schools. Those things didn't happen under Berkshire County Council. The quality of the infrastructure that was sent in our direction were poor. The concern I have is that although this devolution white paper sets out what it wants to do, I think it should be focusing on the things that the Prosperity Board have been doing successfully and effectively. After all, the budget last autumn and the business confidence measures today, notwithstanding the incoming president in the United States, shows that business confidence and investment opportunities in the Thames Valley are imperilled. So I would ask that the focus over the next few years is fundamentally on moving that Prosperity Board forward and demonstrating to the government that we don't need that top-down, unfavourable reorganisation that rips apart what actually has been working pretty effectively and replacing it with a larger council. Cooperation, by all means. Economic development needs to be driven across a wider area. But please stand up for Bracknell Forest, for our residents and for what matters. This is a really difficult and challenging time. There are many promises that are made across the piece over the years when we were Berkshire County Council that weren't forthcoming. I saw with my own eyes in those days the quality of the services we inherited, the broken buildings, the lack of investment in schools, including East Hampstead Park, including Garthill College and others to name a few, all because we didn't have the same size and strength of voice of Slough and Reading, which you would expect as the larger conurbations in Berkshire. I think we should go back and actually have a motion, if you're not going to accept this amendment, which really sets out those criteria. So as a council, we can give you a mandate that shows what really matters to our residents about getting this to work, rather than just empowering some conversation. I do really appreciate how the amendment sets that out, but please accept this amendment. Please send a very clear and strong message to our colleagues and to government that we will work with others to get the very best for our residents, but that means driving the economy, the Thames Valley, that means driving the skills agenda in the area, whilst at the same time making sure we champion the excellent leisure facilities, the opportunity to set our own direction and our own services and continue to deliver and improve on those things which we've done well. Because arguably, bringing a council in on budget for 25 years, bringing on fantastic services in all but a small number of cases, demonstrates that Bracknell Forest, however small it is, has the power and the ability to succeed. But let's work with others to do those things where we need their strength and their input.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. One of my concerns about this devolution is that we are surrounded by councils in our local area who are either bankrupt or close to bankrupt. And of the 6 authorities in Berkshire, I would say we're probably the best financially managed of the lot. My concern is that if we were to combine into a larger authority, all we would be doing is doing our residents a disservice by giving what little remains of our budget to everyone else.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Allen, I support this amendment. Councillor Allen made quite a good point. If you combine authorities, councils that don't have enough money, you just end up with one big council that doesn't have enough money. It doesn't actually solve your problem. Unless, of course, the government rewards you for doing that because it's getting the structure it wants. But that's up to the government. If they wanted to give us the money to do the job, they could give it to the individual councils. So I do have a concern that joining us up with other councils in Berkshire could result in Bracknell Forest losing out on cash that gets sucked into big projects in Reading. We see it on things like the Berkshire Local Transport Board, where they put these multi-million pound bids in for road schemes and things like that, and Bracknell Forest picks up the scraps on occasions. Although our officers have done very well at actually putting really good schemes in that are deliverable, which are higher standard, so that rejigs the balance on that. I was one of the councillors that was a member of this council when we became a unitary authority. It had a great advantage. It brought services a lot closer to residents. And as councillors here, we're all residents in Bracknell Forest. Rather than a distant county authority where the members won't have any interest in our area. And I want to give credit to, now I'm not going to flatter anybody who's sitting next to me at the moment about all the hard work that they did in improving the quality of services in Bracknell Forest, but I would mention maybe Councillor Shilcock, who worked very well with us in order to help improve our social services and our education. Supremo Alan Ward got very close to our schools, and with an authority our size, you can get to know all 40 schools in the borough very well and actually understand the issues they're facing, talk to the head teachers face to face. We'd lose that with a bigger authority by being combined. So I value what we've got. I value Bracknell Forest. And Leader of the Council, I'm going to trust you to go and back for Bracknell Forest in whatever the government imposes on us, because I think we need to work together on this. Please use our experience in understanding how these services are shaped, but I'm not a believer in reorganisation for the sake of it.
Right, thank you. Councillor Gilby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Barnard talks about being complacent. I would suggest that we're being complacent by being in a state of denial about this white paper. If this were a consultation, I would be prepared to get behind this amendment. But it's not a consultation. The white paper is already out. I'm sure when some of the councillors who've spoken here today were introduced with proposals by the last government that they didn't agree with, at a certain point, a constant rearguard fight becomes self-defeating. You sometimes have to work with what you've got. And the trouble is, if we're trying to fight a rearguard action, instead of trying to come up with the best options available for Bracknell Forest residents, we may find that a more unfavourable option is imposed upon us. What this motion is doing is empowering the leader to work with and build up partnerships with our partner authorities in Berkshire and beyond to come up with the best options. And I would emphasise to the amendment, there's really 2 points in that amendment, and one of them is to ensure that we come up with an option that allows our communities to be well served. I think that's very commendable. I would support that in its own isolation, but I think just allowing the leader to just try and focus on reversing a white paper that's already been issued is not a proactive solution, it's a reactive solution. And when councils are reactive, they find themselves at the mercy of decisions by central government that may not suit their best interests. So it's for that reason that I do not support this amendment, however well-meaning the intention is.
Thank you, Councillor Gilby. Councillor Templeton.
Yeah, I certainly would be out there defending everything that's excellent in Bracknell Forest. But we need to be in the talks from the start. We need to be able to determine our own destiny rather than let someone else determine it for us. And in the motion that I set, and it does talk about, there are two sort of authorities here, and the first one that will happen is the strategic authority. And the strategic authority is where devolution comes, where money is coming out of Westminster into a local area, like has happened in recently in Yorkshire and in Manchester, where they are given money to do the energy resources, infrastructure planning, science parks, other activity, bringing growth and industry into their area on a wider scale. So it's money that we would usually come straight to Westminster. is coming out into that local area to be dispersed within that local area according to the needs of that local area. And in those ways, the decision is therefore closer to the people because it's closer to what is happening in an area that we would be as a strategic partner, and a strategic partner, not overcome, but as an authority within that partnership. So I think when everybody's talking about, or people, that paper's been produced, there is to be a strategic authority. So to not actually talk to anybody about belonging to that strategic authority, it will end up, we might well end up in a strategic authority where we're not going to be the major engine for this area. Berkshire has always been, this part of the Thames Valley and Berkshire has always been a huge economic growth area. And we must maintain that. And we must be there right at the start, determining our own destiny, not letting anyone else tell it for us. There will be arguments. We don't want that to happen. We can stand up. It's not coming to this council and saying, this is what we're going to do. We're going to join with that. We're going to join with that. No, we can well say in the end, we're not going to join with them. But we've got to be there at the table when they're starting to talk. There was a recent meeting which made me feel quite sick of this, actually. There was a meeting of all the mayors that are in place. There was not one member from the southeast of England at that table. Not one. Yet where is the financial growth of England and Britain? It's here in the southeast. There was not one representative, but there were all the mayors. So if this is the way we're going, we've got to be part of that table and not missing out. So I do not accept this because of the worry about super councils. It is a super council in the form of a strategic authority, like the Thames Valley Authority, and with one over there where we're all building into that and we're getting money devolved from central government to spend within this area. And because of that, I cannot accept this amendment. But believe me, I'd be fighting on every whatever you call it, piston for Bracknell Forest and all that has been achieved and can be achieved in this area, and for every resident to make sure that our standards and all the quality of life is not being threatened.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Harrison. Sorry, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome this amendment and I'll be supporting it. I don't think anything in this amendment suggests that we shouldn't have a seat at the table and discuss issues of interest and necessity to our residents with other local authorities. I'm a great believer in collaboration and joint working to get the best results for our residents, but I see this white paper as the devolution on the government's terms, and that's why I think we need to put a red line on the ground, and I think this amendment does that. So unlike Councillor Templeton and Councillor Gilby, rather than our response to the white paper being a red line, flying the white flag from our council office, I want to put a red line on the ground, because I think we want to do what's right for our residents and not necessarily accept lying down what the government decides they want to impose on us in terms of devolution. What we want is local decisions by local people, and I think that's what our residents have come to expect. We've been a very prudent local authority, we've been well managed, we've been well run, and the idea of forming strategic authorities which moves the decision making away to other local authorities who haven't been prudent and made sensible decisions, I don't think is in the interests of our residents. So the litmus test for me is a strategic authority where the decisions are taken to more remote places than Bracknell Forest in the interests of our residents, then I say no, it isn't, and that's why I'm happy to support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, Michael Thompson.
I'm a fairly new resident to the area, and I respect what the other councillors have been saying, and I hear what Councillor Gilby said in his contribution. I've lived in Surrey, I've lived in Hampshire before it was split into 3 authorities, and all I can talk about is my understanding of the effect on education. There was a reputation in the past that schools in Berkshire and Hampshire were at a completely different level of competence to those in Surrey, which was the smaller authority. And I think those reputations have long since been buried by the smaller local control of education. I'd like you to think about the amendment does not restrict you from thinking about how we deal with our residents' best interests for each section of what we're responsible for at the moment. There will eventually be a change if the government is minded to put it through. But the key thing you have been putting forward with the original motion was about the economic environment. I think you have to think very carefully as well as to how much the government is going to think about splitting responsibilities between the resulting authorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Frost.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to oppose the amendment as it is, and to reiterate the points that Councillor Temperton made. I think the reason for my opposition to this amendment is that it conflates the plans for unitary authorities and strategic authorities, and the suggestion of kind of reorganisation and the reference to super councils. My understanding of the white paper as it currently is that the suggestion of reorganisation refers to current two-tier authorities, district and county councils, and aims to kind of reduce sort of prevent residents from paying two sets of taxes, change it to one set of taxes, and the changes don't apply to Bracknell Forest as we are already a unitary authority, and the partnership work and strategic authorities are something that we kind of already do a lot in terms of our work in partnership with neighbouring councils, with the Public Protection Partnership, and working in other areas. So my understanding of strategic authorities would not be a million miles away from the kind of partnership work that we already see with our local councils. And I think kind of my support for the principle of devolution as represented by the original motion kind of is about making decisions at the nearest practical level to the residents that we serve, and balancing that with economies of scale and kind of working in ways that can benefit residents by kind of getting value for money, by kind of pooling together with other local authorities. So I can't support the amendment as it is, because I think that the kind of implication of top-down reorganisation, confuses and conflates the plans, kind of two different sets of plans for unitary authorities that don't really apply to us as a well-functioning, kind of relatively stable, from a financial perspective, local authority compared to some others, and it confuses that with strategic authorities, which is a different set of plans, which I think, I know that the leader of our council will go to make the best possible representations for Bracknell Forest as we look to work wherever possible with neighbouring councils. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Greens do not believe that this amendment will preclude us from considering organisations which are favourable to Bracknell Forest Council, larger organisations. I think it expresses the opinion that we may not consider joining with Slough and Windsor because of their financial situation, something that Councillor Allen has already mentioned. and we will be supporting Councillor Temperton in her efforts to get the best for Bracknell Forest Council. However, we will also be supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Forster.
I would firstly like to say that no one will doubt that you, Councillor Temperton, will fight for our borough. I'm 100% sure everyone here knows that you will fight to get the best deal. But there's some things that we need to bring to the surface on this debate. Firstly, it is right that the council, its members, gives you a steer about the direction of travel and our concerns, and that's what's happening now. This council is a successful council. It has a real track record of great delivery, and over the last couple of years you can see it as it's addressing the challenges of climate change, and it's got the freedom to do it. But what I would say is the issue that all local authorities have around funding and SEND aren't fully addressed in any way by the white paper. And it's important that we recognise that there are other losses in particular democratic representation. So we're moving to potentially a larger council, we lose that closeness of our councillors to the residents. And I also want to just bring out the point about the integration costs. We should not think that it's a question of just removing headcount at the senior level. Integrating complex councils will take 5 to 10 years. It will have hundreds of applications that need to be stitched together. It will cost a fortune. And if we don't focus on the benefits to this borough, the benefits that we bring as a unitary authority and fight to keep them, we will lose that precious feel that Bracknell Forest has.
So thank you. Councillor Virgo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's interesting listening to the debate and different political leanings. What I think is that Bracknell's at a crossroads, and we can completely continue building houses, which of course we need to do, but we need employment, and we need new employment, and we want to be big enough to be able to talk to international companies at a high level. And I think I've lived here for a few years. I think the transport here needs improving. I think the line from Bracknell to Waterloo is terrible, absolutely terrible. It takes 1 hour and 5 minutes, and that's pathetic. And that's because of a lack of investment from the government, from the rail authorities, etc. So I do see a point of having a bigger body in order to generate money. I think that's probably what we do need. But I think my fellow councillors have made it clear, and my Liberal colleagues here, I don't think actually the amendment will make the slightest difference to the leader's intent, frankly. I trust the leader will try to get the best deal. But I do think you have to be careful by going with bigger authorities and getting swallowed up in their little dream, and we lose out in Bracknell. Bracknell has to expand. It has to know. I mean, I was on a committee actually under the Conservatives to try and find out what Bracknell is. You know, give us an identity, because we're swamped by towns around us, by Wokingham, by High Wycombe, by Windsor, by Maidenhead. So we need an identity, and we need a path, and we need a vision. And whatever, I guess in the end the government will decide rather than us debating forever. But I do think it's important that we go forward with a Bracknell identity and a Bracknell employment. And as my fellow councillor had talked about education, it is important now. Education is probably one of the most important things the United Kingdom has to look at, because if we don't have the skills for the next generation, we are going to go down the Swanee. So I think it's very, very important all those things are considered. I wish the leader good luck, but you know, you have to fight the Bannon for this town, and whoever we join with, let's join on a Bracknell side and not just give in. Thank you.
Thank you. If no more councillors in the room want to... Oh, you do want to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to. I'm going to speak in favour of the original motion, not the amendment. I think the amendment includes a number of emotive and ill-defined terms. So, you know, devolution is about delegating important decisions towards the communities that we serve.
About the amendment now.
Only about the amendment?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the amendment and saying that it uses emotive and ill-defined phraseology, so I'm talking about that. So devolution is to bring important decisions closer to communities. So to keep it brief, you know, we're in for an interesting time with this policy. I looked at the budget, the recent budget, and it includes provision for what's called integrated settlements for the existing mayoral areas. So I think that gives you an idea of the direction of travel here, which there's going to be a pooling of settlements, which allows these areas, these mayoral areas, the existing mayoral areas, to target investment towards regional priorities. So I see that as a positive development, because as a fellow councillor just said, that we're stuck in a low growth economy and we need to make some changes, and there are plenty of opportunities around locally which are not being actioned because it's not being local.
I think you were talking
involvement.
about the original amendment rather than the original motion rather than the amendment. So if you can relate what you're saying to the amendment, fine, but make
Okay,
sure you do.
I'm talking about the definition of a super council. I don't see an example, at least I've not heard an example of a super council. I'm drawing members' attention to the likely direction of travel, which is the devolution of funding which is already happening in the mayoral areas. And there are positive aspects in having those sorts of decisions devolved to the regions in terms of the economic priorities that will be devolved. Thank you.
Thank you. If no one else in the room wants to speak, does anyone want to speak on?
No one online, Madam Mayor, no.
Right, thank you. Right, the next thing we have to do is vote on the amendment. Oh, sorry, would the proposer of the amendment like to sum up? Oh, the original motion.
I think it's me that winds up. Thanks.
Right.
Yes. Right, to wind... the things that worry me about the amendment are certain two terms, really. Two of them are unfavourable. It's really hard to decide what would be favourable and what would be unfavourable. And if I brought terms back to the... And yes, we can have a whole clear thing about what is Bracknell Forest, sticking by Bracknell Forest, all that Bracknell Forest stands for, making sure Bracknell remains Bracknell Forest. Trying to do that, I certainly will. I think on a bigger scale, there's the Super Council, and the Super Council, to me, could be defined as a strategic authority. Now, to me, that strategic authority is not a frightening thing. It is it would bring money into the area. It would continue to get investment. It would be continue, and we would be a small part of that. Hopefully, continuing in more or less as we are. Because nobody has sent us that paper yet. Nobody has said anything about Bracknell Forest going anywhere. But if we should, then we ought to be thinking on the strategic, first of all, that strategic authority, first of all, that probably is going to happen, and we ought to know where we're going. And therefore, because to me that is a super council, it's not gone down, it's certainly going to go, if we get in there early from the stage one, it'll be built up right from the partners going upwards and being brought together rather than being dictated to coming down. And I don't want to be dictated to by anybody. I want to be in there saying what we want rather than what is going to be imposed on us. And therefore, I think in order that we could get investment into this area, in order that we have more control over what we actually, how we expand these areas and how we work together in true partnership to make the very, very best for not just Berkshire now. Berkshire's just, it might be too small, we might still get that through. But if it has to be bigger, where are we going and with whom? And it has to be in the very best interest of every Bracknell Forest citizen. And so I will be opposing the amendment because of the words unfavourable and super council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it possible, Madam Mayor, to beg indulgence, is it possible to seek at this stage in the process a recorded vote on the amendment? Thank you.
So it's now time to vote on the amendment. Would those in favour of the amendment please put their... And the clerk is recording this.
As is recorded vote, I will come to each councillor in turn. When I say your name, please turn on your mic and indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Allen.
For.
Councillor Bailey. Oh, okay. Councillor Barnard.
For.
Councillor Bidwell.
Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Cochrane.
Against.
Councillor Collings.
For.
Councillor Christophe Eberle.
For.
Councillor Tina Eberle.
For.
Councillor Exton's online. Councillor Michael Forster.
For.
Councillor Sophie Forster.
For.
Councillor Frewer.
Against.
Councillor Frost.
Against.
Councillor Gore.
For.
Councillor Gilby.
Against.
Councillor Hafferty.
For.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hayes. Councillor Jeffrey, he's not here. Councillor Mackenzie Boyle.
For.
Councillor McLean.
For.
Councillor Neal.
Against.
Councillor Regan.
Against.
Councillor Penfold.
Against.
Councillor Pickering. Councillor Pressland.
Against.
Against.
Councillor Kath Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Philip Thompson.
For.
Sorry, I missed Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Virgo. Councillor Watts.
Abstain.
Councillor Webb.
Against.
Councillor Wright.
Against.
And Councillor Zaharuddin. Sorry.
For.
I believe that has been carried by 17 votes to 16.
Right. It now becomes a substantive motion. Again, does any councillor wish to speak on it? Councillor Barnard.
I'm confident that the Leader of the Council will go to negotiate as best they can. But I think tonight, Leader of the Council, you picked up that there is considerable concern about the nature of the frame of this. I'm someone that believes that we can fight for what's right in Bracknell Forest, that we can work to ensure that any authority that comes out of it is in the interest of our residents. But I don't believe we just have to take these devolution proposals as they are. Up and down the country, councillors from right across the political spectrum are scrutinising this white paper, scrutinising what's being put in place, and they're going to come back with reasons as to why there'll be different solutions. I hope in your discussions and negotiations you can say we're in favour of ensuring that we drive the economic capacity of Berkshire forward and of Bracknell Forest in that context, but at the same time, as I'm sure other councils are in Berkshire, say, but please recognise the huge achievements that the unitary authorities have made when actually working towards a strategic authority or some arrangement, that it isn't unfavourable and it isn't seen to be top down. There was no manifesto commitment to do this by the Labour government when they came in alongside other things, and I hope that you can refer back to your colleagues in government and say, let's work together to do this. I've seen the letter that the leaders have said, and I hope that that can be taken forward, but please recognise a majority of councillors tonight have said they don't want something which is unfavourable or looks to be a top-down, council, and maybe come back next time with some proposals that actually highlight how we can further support discussions and negotiations, maybe with greater granularity to what's proposed. We will get there in the end, but I remember over many years how we fought to get the independence that we had. I know we've got to change that, but please, please, please recognise it's more than just a government white paper that's informed 25 years of success in Bracknell Forest.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like Councillor Barnard, I have no doubt that the leader of the council, who is a doughty campaigner for the interests of her residents in Great Hollands, but also the residents of Bracknell Forest, will do her very best to stand up for Bracknell Forest. My concern is, as I said in the debate on the amendment, that this is devolution on the government's terms, and my concern is that she may well be dictated to by other people. I think the purpose of the amendment was to strengthen her hand in negotiating at a strategic level for what's in the best interests of the residents of Bracknell Forest. I think this motion has made her position better when she goes to the table to talk at a strategic level, because it's quite clear that this council stands up for the residents of Bracknell Forest, and that is the position she will be armed with when she goes into bat in a strategic authority.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Frost.
Thank you. I just wanted to further to what I said before about the amendment, just clarify that it feels to me like some councillors have debated tonight on the misapprehension that the government white paper would lead to kind of the subsumation of Bracknell Forest within a sort of giant conglomerate and cease to exist in its kind of current state. And I think it confuses and conflates the plans for unitary authorities and strategic authorities, which to my understanding are two different things. Bracknell Forest, will continue to exist as a unitary authority. It won't be affected by, I grew up in Mid Suffolk, and that as a two-tier authority, is likely to not exist in its current form in the near future due to the plans in the white paper. So I just wanted to clarify for any misapprehension that I don't think, as far as my understanding is, Bracknell Forest will continue to serve its people as and be close. So I think the amendment introduces a kind of some vague terms. You have super council that I'm not sure about. So I think currently it kind of is talking about different things, but as other councillors have said, when we do enter into discussions about strategic authorities and balancing both the principle of devolution, which I fully support, with needing economies of scale to bring much needed inward investment to the borough of Bracknell Forest, I fully believe we'll continue to work very well with neighbouring local authorities. But again, I think it's very early days to be talking about. We don't know what the proposals are for the different strategic authorities, what that might look like, what that might mean. So I think at this stage we could only have quite a circular discussion, and I think what we all are in agreement on is that we represent the people of Bracknell Forest and will do our very best for them, whatever these proposals begin to look like for strategic authorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak? Right, Councillor Temperton.
Thank you. Winding up then, yes, I've heard tonight, I've got the message. It certainly will strengthen my hand for strategic level, I think, on everything, because I can say I've got a vote of 17 to 16, so where do we go for here? So I've listened to the arguments, I understand where it's all coming from, I understand in many ways the fear of what could happen is also there. We don't want to be lost if we do have to join with unitary authorities, which is we don't want to be with the certain ones. We don't want to be with ones that are failing. We want to be and what we've got we can't lose. Totally understand that. Totally will fight for that. Totally will keep you all informed. And if we have to say no, we say no, and we see how we go for there. And so we see what all the alternatives are, and we get the best for Bracknell Forest residents, knowing what we can't lose, because it is a good place to be. And people expect us to be out there. We got elected to be here to represent their interests and make sure that their interests are as safe as possible, and not to just throw them over for anyone. There is no way would I ever do that, and I now have a strengthened hand because I've got an even stronger argument, the fact that it's gone to a vote of 16 to 17. So thank you.
Thank you. Was that your summing up, Councillor?
That was my summing up.
Right, thank you. Did anyone online want to say anything?
No, Madam Mayor, no.
Right, thank you. I think we vote on this motion. So would you put your hands up if you are in favour of it?
That's carried.
Yes. Right. So that is carried. Sorry. Right. That brings our meeting to an end. So thank you all for attending, and can you just stay in your places and be quiet until they have made sure the streaming and the whatever else, the